Okay, so we're up to Blue Belt. So congratulations, and you got past the Sky Boat song. Before I do Blue Belt, and I talk about hot cross buns, cold cross buns, there's one thing I want to address one more time to review, because in the desire to get through these belt songs and earn our belts, we can't forget to develop really good skills and habits and techniques. I mentioned in purple belt about we want to make sure we have good bow holds, and that's still true. Always make sure you play with a good bow hold. And when I'm talking about blue belt, I also want to remind you about how your left hand has to be placed on the instrument. If you, for example, are a cello player, and I will have put something on the back of the cello neck, make sure your thumb stays on there. Don't let your thumb wrap around, and don't let it just kind of be in midair, right? It has to. You want to keep some kind of contact with the instrument, and that's the spot where you will have the most contact. Your hand will do a bunch of other things, reaching all around, and it's got to have sort of an anchor to keep it in place. Eventually, we will move it to different spots, but we want to find that spot. I want you to get used to where that feels when the instrument is beside you, because you can't always look at the instrument when you're playing, right? The music's in front of you. Conductor might be in front of you. Other people you're playing are in front of you. You can't be looking at this all the time. So you want to get used to where your hand is relative to the rest of your body and the instrument. If you're a violin and viola player, you have 2 points of contact. In other words, 2 points where your hand is touching the instrument, and only two. One is the thumb, which is right on the side of the neck here. It's a little bit low. It's not, in other words, it doesn't come up over here. It doesn't come up above the fingerboard. If anything, it's a little bit below. The lower it is, the more, we don't want it completely under, but the lower it is, the easier it is to reach for higher notes. So we want to keep it, fairly low. The other point of contact is with your first finger, and that's just, it's like you're kind of pinching it very, very slightly on the other side there. And there should be some space between the neck of the instrument. And imagine, if I'm holding the instrument here, there should be some space. Where are we here? There we go. There should be some space in between. Here's the neck of the instrument and the rest of my hand. All right? And again, that's for allowing our hand to move where we need it. But we do have to keep that contact because your fingers need to learn where to go without you looking. Eventually. Okay? The tapes are there to help you, so you get the right spacing and stretching, etc. But you have to develop this feel for it, because eventually, see, my instrument doesn't have any tapes. Yours won't either in a few years. Okay? Probably by middle school, you'll have all the tapes off, and you'll know exactly where to go, just like I do. You won't be any different than my playing, and maybe you can give me a lesson at that point. Okay? So, looking forward to being really advanced players there. Okay. For hot cross buns, cold cross buns, I have put on your instrument a green tape and a yellow tape. The green tape is for what we call a high second finger if you're a violin or viola player. It means it uses your second finger in a high sounding position. The yellow tape would be for the low sounding position of that second finger. So you notice both tapes are for the same finger. So if you put your first finger on the red, the green is going to be spaced apart from it. There's going to be a big hole in there. We call that a whole step, W-H-O-L-E, an entire step, a whole step. But it's like there's a big hole in there. The closer of the two, the yellow, is called a half step. And if you're playing it correctly, if your first finger is on the red, your second finger is going to be touching it. So they're going to be right next to each other, almost on top of each other. The closer they are, the better. Okay, now, if you're a cello player, now you use a different finger for each one, right? Because you had first finger for red, fourth finger for blue. So your second finger is the yellow tape, and your third finger is the green. And they should all be about equally spaced apart. Okay? And when you're playing this, you are either, and this is true for whether you're doing cello or violin or viola, you're either going to be using the green tape, right? It's going to look like this for cello. Green, red, open, right? That's the first three notes of hot cross buns. Or for violin and viola, green, red, open, right? With that whole step, that big space in between. When you're doing cold cross buns, on whatever string, because it's the same on each one. If you're a cello player, it's your second finger. It's not right next to the first. There is a little bit of space in between the two. And it's a comfortable amount of space. It's not a huge stretch. And so that becomes yellow, red, open, again, on whatever string it is. On violin and viola, that yellow tape is right next to the red, pretty close to it. So then the yellow, red, and open looks like that. Now, hot cross buns and cold cross buns are played on 3 of the 4 strings. And these are the A string, D string, and G string. Those are the 4 strings that all of the instruments have. So violins, you're not doing it on the E string. Cellos and violas, you're not doing it on the C string. And this is just so we get more used to playing on, especially on those 3 strings, because you're going to do a lot of playing on those 3 strings. You'll also get some on the other ones as well very soon. But I want you to be really familiar with those 3, where they are, how they feel in your hand, and that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to do it on the A string to begin with. And this is hot cross buns. So I'm placing, I'm a violin player, right? So I'm placing my second finger on the green and my first finger on the red. And I'm going to put those down right away. I'm making contact with my thumb and the side of my finger. And it's just hot cross buns, so it sounds like this. For cold cross buns, I put my second finger on the yellow tape. It's exactly the same fingering, 2-1-0, 2-1-0, except it's going to sound different because my second finger is in a different spot. It's got sort of a lower sound. If I go to the D string in hot cross buns, I go back to the green. Cold cross buns, again, I place it on the yellow, and being violin, it's first and second finger right next to each other. If I'm on cello, I'd have a little bit of space in between. And then I go to the G string. Because it's violin, I have to reach over a little bit. I have to actually lift my bow kind of up and over the instrument just a little bit, right? And you'll notice I kind of do it by bringing up my wrist and then letting it drop. I don't bring my elbow way up here. Right? There's no need to do that. It's much more uncomfortable to bring it up like that. Just kind of let your hand do it instead. And cold cross buns with the yellow. Go. All right. It's a fairly simple belt, but we want to be really precise about which tape we're on, and we also want to make sure that we're still getting good posture, good left hand shape, keeping the wrist off. All right. Especially if you're violin viola, we don't want our there we are. We don't want our wrist up like this. We want it down. Okay. And good bow holds and all that stuff. So it gives you the chance to really think about getting your technique, the skills that you use to play, getting them as good as possible, good posture, and that's how you get the best playing. Okay, so I hope that helps. If you have any questions, go ahead and send me an email. Thank you.